Okay, if you're a property owner in Lahaina or have an interest in what's going on in Lahaina, you're going to want to pay attention to this. I'm not a professional podcaster or a videocaster or whatever they call it. So I just want to share some information to get it out to you. And what we're going to talk about today briefly is, but I want to cover the information enough so you know what's going on. But we're going to talk about whether or not Governor Green New Deal violated Hawaii's constitution with his proclamation on the 17th of July. So let's dig right into it. So first of all, we want to let's see what the proclamation is. So this is the proclamation itself, and I don't know if you could read this or not, but if you look here, it says, "By the authority vested in me by the Constitution and the laws of the state of Hawaii." So in order to understand this a little bit further, I thought I'd go check out Hawaii's constitution. And oddly enough, there is nothing in there that grants the governor that type of power. In fact, it does just the opposite. But we're going to look into what kind of power the governor's looking for in a moment. But let's find out whether or not he even has the right to have it. So right here, it says in section 14, no law shall be passed except by bill. Each law shall embrace but one subject which shall be expressed in its title. I should have started with this one here instead of jumping all the way in the middle of the page. Anyway, section 1, all political power of the state is inherent in the people, and the responsibility for the exercise thereof rests with the people. All government is founded on this authority. Okay? No citizen shall be disenfranchised or deprived of any of the rights or privileges secured to other citizens. One of the questions I had, and other people do as well, does the Hawaii state constitution somehow or another override the United States Constitution? And apparently not, because here's the oath of office that public officers, including the governor, have to swear to. And they say, I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the state of Hawaii. And nowhere in there does it give them executive authority to go outside of that. I've read through the entire document. I see nothing that gives them the type of executive authority in an emergency. In fact, I think that I want to get moving on, so I don't want to get stuck on this for a long time. But mostly, what it does is allows the governor, to consolidate resources such as money, now whatever it takes to get everything back up on their feet. That's the authority. That's it. Just money and resources. That's all he's allowed to give. Before I get too much into the rest of the proclamation, I just don't you just love how governments parade out indigenous populations whenever it serves them? Yeah, it's great. It's a sideshow here in Maui at the resorts and so on and so forth. And yeah, and now here with this right here, they're parading it out, saying that the Hawaiians find it difficult to buy homes here. And the exact wording, it says Native Hawaiians represent approximately 21% of Hawaii's population. However, they represent nearly 40% of the state's homeless population. I don't know if those numbers are true or not. I see a lot of different people here in Maui homeless, but that isn't the point. The point is, it's tough to buy a home. And you got to remember, it's not a real emergency issue when the state's sitting on over 150,000 acres. I think it's very important that we take a look at the kind of power that Governor Green New Deal gave himself. And I want to look here at Section 4, the suspension of laws. That's Section 127A.13. It don't tell you what it is, but there are additional powers in an emergency period to the extent necessary to expedite the construction, repair, and renovation and occupancy of housing and infrastructure projects. Blah, blah, blah. But, they're suspending historic laws and a whole lot more. And I'll talk about those. I have to pause every time to bring up a new screen so you can see it. So hang on. So this is the very first part of 127-A13, the additional powers in an emergency. The very first part of it, it says, in the event of a state of emergency declared by the governor, pursuant to Section 127A 14, so we'll get to that in a moment, they can basically provide for and require the quarantine of or segregations of persons who are affected or believed to have been exposed to any infections, communicable diseases, or other diseases that, in the governor's opinion, and I'll stop right there because what do you mean the governor's opinion? I mean, is he really practicing medicine? And by the way, if he is, that's violation of the Hawaii Constitution as well. But if they do happen to catch you, they have the right to put you in quarantine, but they will care for you, and you know they'll go on to clean your house for you, and you can see right here they'll do a really good job because they have no faith in you being able to do a good job, but it's all at your expense anyway. You don't get to choose the contractor or if you can do it yourself. Interesting that just came up 3 weeks before the fire. So, and it seems like here in section 2 of that, or paragraph 2, the laws that or there's the laws that they're suspending mostly have everything to do with licensing laws, quarantine laws, laws relating to labels, grades, and standards, and that has a lot to do with building. So I'm not a building contractor and things like that. So you'd have to talk to somebody else what uh, laws relating to labels, grades, and standards are, because I have no idea what that is. I think I think one thing is clear though. You can see here in paragraph 4 where how they suspend the provisions and regulatory law for out of state utilities to conduct business in the state, and that includes a lot of the licensing laws and for their employees as well. It gets better. One of the things I also found interesting here was paragraph 6. Shut off water, gas mains. I mean, this is the things that they can do in the event of an emergency, electric power connections, or suspend other service. And to the extent permitted by or under federal law, suspend electronic media transmission and also direct and control the mandatory evacuation of the civilian population and other basic emergency functions that's in line item 8 there. Also, apparently the governor thinks it's okay to suspend state holidays in the event of an emergency. Explain that one. And I don't think anybody's surprised, like 12 here. And this, they can suspend the laws and regulate and prohibit the sale and distribution of any firearms, ammunition. And if you go, you get the idea, gun control. Uh, and here's liquor too at the bottom. I guess they don't want you drinking in the event of emergency. So you can see it doesn't take a Harvard lawyer to figure out that this definitely does indeed violate Hawaii state constitution. And there's a lot of laws that are laws that are being violated here, but 9 by my count. And the very important ones like sunshine laws, collective bargaining, and just basic licensing requirements that are here, that are required here in the state of Hawaii, just for the safety of public and building. Um, but all these things look like they're being completely overlooked, and everything's going to be fast tracked. At least the development projects that are on the drawing board, and I think Lahaina is going to be included in that. Yeah, I want to tell you something about this governor's proclamation. 17 July 2023. Did anybody hear about it? Did anybody know about this emergency that they were suspending everybody's civil rights over and suspending 9 different laws? I didn't hear anything about it. I looked around. The only time I heard about it was when this guy here, Justin Huey, spoke up about it, and he didn't like it any more than I do after I read it. So, how did other people feel about it? Well, we know she sure as hell didn't like it. I was wondering if I lost my mind because everybody went along with this emergency proclamation so easily, and nobody questioned it. And when I looked at the comments from the first meeting, which have been scrubbed, there were about 400 of them because nobody was allowed to. There was only so many people that were allowed to testify, and there was just testimony, as if I don't know. And it was weird the way people just sat there and looked at them. The council members just sat there and looked at everybody. But the comments, about half of the comments were people that supported Governor Green's proclamation, emergency proclamation. And I think they just did it because they didn't understand what they were looking at. And maybe it was because somebody didn't tell them. But let me tell you right now, and to be clear, proclamations are not laws. And as to whether or not they're complied with, again, take a look at your Constitution and take a look at the overreach that not just me, but Candace Chung of the Courthouse News Service kind of felt the same way. She writes here Native Hawaiian interest groups. She doesn't mention what the groups are. And environmental organizations. They joined with the American Civil Liberties Union of Hawaii and Sierra Club on Thursday, claiming that Governor Josh Green New Deal overstepped his authority when he issued an emergency proclamation to expand affordable housing opportunities in the state. That was filed Thursday. It charged that Green's July 17th emergency proclamation allows the government and housing developers to skirt laws that protect the environment, Native Hawaiian burials, historical properties, and the ACLU and the Sierra Club joined Ohana Olele Housing Committee at Ola Kakao, Hawaii, and Hawaii Advocates for Truly Affordable Housing and Native Hawaiian cultural practitioner. Oh God, you're gonna give me this one here. Ku'i Keokalani Kamakea Ohelo as plaintiffs. In other words, I'm not the only one looking at this. So it goes on to explain a little bit more what the proclamation is, but we've taken a look enough at the proclamation, but I want to take and show you something else that's going to narrow it down. You can decide whether or not this is something that you can get behind after this or not. Okay, one quick overview of what the reason for the proclamation was. A couple of points that are made out right here. Hawaii has the highest median home prices in the country. Without housing options that are affordable, people have to leave. The same thing on the next one. Workers are priced out of housing and they got to move away. So we don't have a workforce. A bunch of Hawaiians now live in, there's a place called Aloha, Oregon. Of course, a lot of people live in Vegas because when they moved there, their $500,000 house bought them a 5,000 square foot house and had money left over. They say nearly 40% of the homeless neighbors are native Hawaiian. I don't know. I don't think that's true, or at least not from what I've seen. And they also say they have the highest unemployment rate. Hawaiians do, as though somehow or another having a house owning a house would increase employment. I'm not exactly sure where this is all going on here, but none of this right here constitutes any kind of emergency. Like we covered earlier, it's always been expensive in Hawaii. It, and it's because we don't, the island isn't growing anymore. But I also want to emphasize the fact that the state itself has 152,000 acres of land. I mean, like I said, it's enough to give everybody 40 acres and have plenty left over. Real quick, last thought. There's no doubt that the lawsuit, which was filed on Thursday, is the beginning of what I assume is going to be a lot of lawsuits. And I'm sure some of them are going to make their way to the Supreme Court. This is going to be messy. There's no question about it. I encourage you to take a look at the video that we made. It's a very crude video like this one, but take a look at the video that we made about eminent domain to give you an idea where things may be going for the future. Thanks for taking a look at it. Mahalo, and God bless all of you, all of us.